I cannot believe that I have to say this in my channel, not because this topic isn't important, but because if you know anything about me or you have watched any of my videos, you would have a pretty clear idea of what my stance about this topic is. But just to let it out over here and just make it very clear, I do not support Trump. First of all, I am not American. I do not live in the United States. And also, I am an immigrant myself. Let me say this once again, because many of you seem to be really fucking dense. I do not agree, support, or condone any of the actions that the US government is carrying out at the moment. More specifically, the mass deportations that are carrying against immigrants. It is outrageous. It is inhumane. It's something that should be penalized by the Human Rights Association. That is something that we cannot allow. This is the most horrible thing that I have seen in a long time. And what pisses me off the most is when people use the excuses like, oh, a country should prioritize its own citizens, or they should enter the legal way. Because let's be fucking real right now. The US economy is built on immigrant labor, okay? You guys use them like fucking slaves, deny their rights, but then when they seek refuge, you demonize them. You treat them like scum. Hello, my gorgeous viewers and readers. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I hope your weekend was filled with cool solo museum dates, cold city walks, and the slow realization that your government and your economy is actually built on immigrant labor. Today, we're talking about a book that feels incredibly relevant to the political situation that we are seeing in the US, more specifically after Donald Trump came into power as a president once again. And this book is American Debt by Jeanine Cummins. And honestly, this book, I think it's the perfect example of what is actually happening in the US, more specifically as a migrant or as an immigrant. And I'm going to use this book as an example, or to use it as a lens, in order for us to learn what immigration or migration actually means. Why would people want to leave their own countries, and what is that they are searching for? But before we dive into my criticisms of immigration policy, let's actually talk about the book for 1 or 2 minutes. The book follows Lydia, who is a middle-aged bookstore owner living in Acapulco in Mexico, who finds her life utterly shattered when her journalist husband suddenly exposes the head of a new cartel, or a very, very dangerous cartel. The cartel kills all her family in retaliation, and after realizing that all her family is murdered, all the members, all the people that she has loved don't exist anymore, she realizes that she is utterly alone. So the only thing that she can do, the only place that she can find safety, is outside the country, outside Mexico. So she decides to bring herself and her own son to the United States. She needs to cross the border in order to find the safety that she's looking for, because she knows that anywhere in Latin America or anywhere in Mexico, she knows that she will not be safe. Both of them join thousands or millions of immigrants trying to cross to the United States. They try to cross the border. But during this journey, we see how cruel and how gruesome this journey actually is. We see death, we see abuse, we see violence, we see extortion, but also we see how famine and how lack of sleep or how dirtiness are actually affecting her emotionally, but also affecting her son. This book perfectly encaptures how desperation and how the instinct of survival will actually make you do anything and everything under the sun in order to make sure that you or your loved ones are safe and well, or have the chance to be safe and well, right? This is a journey of how, what are the lengths that you will take in order to ensure that you can survive, that you can find a better place, or you can find their dreamland. Now, to truly understand what Lydia feels, we need to understand the conditions that make people flee their homes, right? Because if we are being completely honest, a lot of people, or 90% of the immigrants, don't really want to leave their home country, right? They don't want to leave their families behind, or they don't want to leave their cultures or their languages. They don't really want to leave, but they feel like they have to. They are being forced to leave so they can get a better future, not only for themselves, but also for their families. For example, many countries in Latin America really struggle with systemic corruption and violent criminal organizations like cartels, for example. We see how these organizations have an incredible amount of power, right? They are the ones that actually control the governments, right? They operate with impunity. They are the ones that sometimes set their own country laws, but also they are just so far removed from the law or from constitutions that they can do whatever they want, right? That is how they can control the media and they can control journalism, right? Because they go away unpunished. And this is why journalists or activists or normal civilians get targeted daily, and they also get killed on a daily basis, right? And like, this is exactly what we see in the book. We see how all these violence and all these power that these cartels have actually made a lot of people migrate towards the United States, right? Because they know or they feel that they will be the next ones in line, right? Because if you misbehave or if you fall out of line from these cartel rules that they have, then you will be persecuted. You will be the next target, right? So for example, one of the examples that we see in the book is that Lydia has to pay to the cartel in order to ensure her safety, right? So she, as a bookstore owner, she has to pay the cartel, or like the local cartel, what is called a mordida, which is basically you have to pay some sort of money monthly in order to make sure that the cartel doesn't come to your business and actually just fucking destroys it, right? So that is something that is very common in Latin America, but also in many countries in the world, right? So that is one of the many factors, or that is probably the most important factor when we talk about why people want to leave their home country, right? Especially in Latin America, because they know that this is a system that won't change because it's a corrupt system, right? Governments are actually influencing or benefiting from all the power that the cartels have. So therefore, there is no point on people actually trying to live in a city or to live in a country that will do nothing for its citizens. And this is why Lydia's story is so important, right? Because this is a reality that many immigrants face anywhere around the world, not only in Latin America, right? But people risk their lives and people risk to cross the border because being on the other side means that they have a chance of safety. They have a chance to survive, right? Rather than staying at home and facing either harm or certain death. That's why people leave. They don't leave because they just want to, right? Or at least the vast majority of people do not leave because they want to. They leave because they have no other choice. Because let's be real right now, if you were in this situation where you have to face gang violence, gang recruitment, state corruption, and also active threats to your own life, you would be the first to run, right? And that is why there are many immigrants that are actually facing this grueling journey, right? You're facing starvation, lack of sleep, you're facing the fear of your own life, and you are actually going through the desert or going through these like long journeys of like 20 days walking with it, like in the middle of the desert with no water and no food, because you have somewhere or there is somewhere that can ensure you or can afford to give you a second chance. You would do it as well. If you are facing all these horrible things that these people are facing in their own country, you would be the first one to run as well. And more specifically, if you are a woman, you have it 1,000 times worse. We all know that misogyny adds another layer of danger in women's lives, right? No matter what country you're in or no matter what country you live in, you will face misogyny. But when we talk about the immigrant journey specifically, we see how much misogyny seeps into this path. We see how all these women that are doing this journey not only face the dangers of nature, for example, but they also face the dangers of men. Immigrant women, especially if they are young, they are often targeted for sexual violence, trafficking, or even forced relationships, right? And this is something that is very common in Latin America. I've seen many stories about immigrant women who have done this journey that talk about how they were forced into sex work to pay for the journey, or how they were in forced relationships with people from the cartel, right? They are under a situation where someone from the cartel, usually very often a man, tells them or forces them to be in a relationship with them, often very sexual and very abusive, but they cannot escape this relationship because they are told that their family is under threat, right? So the people in the cartel usually say, if you try to leave, I'm going to kill your family. So therefore, they are forced to be in these relationships until they decide to leave or until something happens, right? So women are often the target, well, especially immigrant women are often targeted into these very sexually devious relationships, I would say, quote unquote. And this is what makes Lydia's journey even more dangerous, right? Because not only she is an immigrant trying to cross the border, which is already dangerous, but she's also escaping a cartel. And also, most importantly, she is a woman. So she is triple vulnerable, right? She is facing the worst of the worst. And also she can be killed or sexually abused at any given time. Whoever she meets in the journey can either be someone who is from this cartel who is searching for her, or someone who is trying to abuse her. Now, if we connect the story of American Dad with the US immigration system, we see that reality is much, much worse than we could actually think or that we could actually expect, right? So looking at my notes here, I see that according to the official US government data, ICE actually deported 271,000 people to 192 countries in 2024. ICE deported more than 250,000 people to different countries in 1 year. Not only that, but we see how ICE deportations have significantly increased since the previous years. No matter who was in power, we see how this year has been the highest since 2014, right? And the countries that have the most deportations, or the countries that receive the most deported individuals, are Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras. And actually, this shows that Latin American countries or Latin American people are actually the ones who are the most affected with these rates. And this is where policy and American Dad intersect, because the migrants who are going through these brutal conditions or through this brutal journey are not faced with people or with a system that is trying to preserve their rights or trying to help them in some sort of way. They are finding themselves with people who treat them like the demons, or like they are treating them like subhumans. They are treated like cattle. They don't have rights. They are things that have to be removed. And what is even scarier is that now enforcement is not only focusing on immigrants with a criminal record, right? They are also going for immigrants that have been here for more than 10 years, or people who have a green card, but they are just willy-nilly taking them and deporting them. It doesn't matter who they are, or it doesn't matter how they look. What does matter is how they look like, but not who they are, what they are, or what they have been doing here for the past years that they've been in the country, right? They do not care about that. And then you'll find yourself with tens, hundreds of thousands of people in these wannabe concentration camps, because they are called ICE facilities, but at the end of the day, they are concentration camps, right? So you find these facilities that are being overcrowded by people who are going through the process of being deported, and then they are sent to their home countries that they haven't visited in 10 years, or that they have never been to because they were born in the US, but because they have a specific look or a specific skin color, then they are sent to their home countries, right? And also, what's even worse is that I have seen, please don't quote me on that, I haven't seen any news about this, but apparently there are people that are being sent to countries that they are not from, right? So someone from Mexico is sent to Honduras, and it's just like, why are you sending me to this country, right? But yeah, again, don't quote me on that. But yeah, this is the reality of deportations, right? It's not just, oh, I'm getting this criminal that is part of this gang and I'm sending them home, right? No, you're taking 15-year-old Mexican girl who was born in the US, but because she looks Mexican or she is from Mexican descent, you're going to send her to her own home country. And what's even more embarrassing is the fact that the US economy thrives and is built on immigrant labor, right? Because there are so many examples and so many industries that survive thanks to the labor of the immigrants, like agriculture or service industries. They live through all these immigrants who are cheap labor, right? But at the end of the day, these immigrants are still denied basic respect, basic protections, and also basic pay, right? They are used and abused by this system who does not care about them. And that's what makes this journey, like, that's what makes all of this so wild to me, right? Because not only there are these people who are escaping from literal hell in their own countries to the point where they accept being abused on a daily basis and to being enslaved by another country, but also you think that they are demons, or you think that they are too brown for your own Aryan country, and then you send them to a country they do not belong or they are not part from. So, as a quick conclusion, what does American Dad teach you, right? So, to me, it taught me that migration is not ambition, it's survival. It's something that you do because you need to, because it's like doing that will ensure or will allow you to have higher chances of survival, right? It also shows me that there are a lot of nations in this world who thrive and survive on immigrant labor. Even my home country, Spain, is one of these countries that survive on immigrant labor. I could talk for hours about how Spain is actually manipulating immigrants in order to make sure that we survive economically. But that's another topic for another day, right? But yeah, we see how all these nations, usually first world countries, actually use immigrant labor as a way to thrive in this capitalistic society. And last but not least, this book has also taught me that all these crazy immigration policies that many countries have do not actually solve the immigration problem. What they actually do is just create a small layer, right? Because at the end of the day, you're not attacking the root cause of immigration. Like, for example, gangs, violence, or corruption and human insecurity. What you are doing is just trying to protect your own economy. You're not actually supporting the humanitarian rights. So this is why I'm telling you guys to read American Dad, because it will teach you something that many of us consider basic knowledge, which is empathy, right? I know that it is really hard for you to understand that immigrants are people just like you and I, okay? Because I understand that if you see someone who doesn't have the skin tone of a uncooked chicken, that makes you think that they are either criminals, bandits, or they are people that are coming here to steal your rights. But actually, what this book will teach you is it will teach you that immigrants are just like you and I, they are people, right? And if you don't want to read the book, or you can't, because the only letter of the alphabet that you know is the K, then what I recommend you is to look at the political state of your own country, of the US, for the next 3 years. And then you will find yourself in the same situation as these immigrants that you hate so much are, right? You will find yourself having to flee because the president that you so much love right now and that you very openly and gladly voted for will turn your beloved democracy into a tyranny. And this is exactly what is going to happen to you. So then you will have to learn empathy. You will learn what is actually happening to all these people. That's all for today, guys. I would leave it here because I am tired of these dumb fucks, okay? I am tired of all these Americans that have no brain cells and that keep parroting the same thing that the orange grimer is saying, okay? I am tired of this man. I hope he dies soon. But yeah, anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you had a great time. I hope you learned something, or I hope, most definitely, I hope that you give American Dad a chance, because this book is truly a masterpiece. And if you have read this book already, please let me know your opinion in the comments. I would love to know your opinion, and let's debate. Or you can also follow me on my social media. I post more content there. I post that every day. So yeah, make sure that you follow me on my social media accounts, and let's debate and let's be friends. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please do not be a dickhead. Please do not support ICE. We do not support ICE in this house. But yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you soon. Bye, guys.